The state of Colorado is considering rent control for mobile home parks. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the fact that the state of Colorado is actually looking at getting rent control for mobile home parks. Now, normally I don't talk about a lot about mobile home parks on this channel because it's not really something that I invest in, but I do know some other small real estate investors who, they own small mobile home parks, and this really could be, an interesting thing for them. So I know it's become a thing lately in real estate investing where people, they saw how much cash flow that these mobile home parks were generating. And so a lot of investors are going out there, they're finding parks that were owned by mom and pop landlords, they're buying them, they're making them a little bit more efficient, and they're raising the rents and, making a ton of money. So the problem though is that these tenants, a lot of the times, they can't afford the additional cost for the lot rent. Even though they own the house that's on it, the additional cost of the lot rent is too much for them, and they're just really struggling. So rather than being able to simply move their house because it costs so much to move it, they end up having to abandon their houses and then move on to somewhere else. Now, I actually have no problem with this. Actually, most of the time, the new owners are just bringing the lot rents up to what the market is charging for those rents. So it's not like the landlords are doing anything that's illegal or unfair. They're just bringing those rents up to market level. That's the whole purpose behind them buying those properties in the first place. It's just like, as a landlord, if I was to buy a apartment building or a single family home and the previous owner was renting it out for $600 a month, it doesn't matter what the previous owner was charging. My costs are going to be different than the previous owners because, I have the mortgage that I got, I have the insurance that I got, I have all of my costs, be that property management or whatever. So my cost might be significantly higher, which means that in order to make a profit, I might have to charge higher rent. Now, if the tenant can't afford that rent, well, I'm sorry, but you might have to just move along. Okay, so I have no problem with this, but lawmakers up there in Colorado, what they're doing is they're trying to fight this by putting a rent control in place, right? And you know how I feel about rent control. I absolutely hate it. So I think what they're trying to do is cap rents at 3% a year. Now, this would actually probably have the opposite effect of what they think, okay? This would actually make it harder for landlords to make a profit, who own these mobile home parks. So rather than keeping rents stable, they would be forced to raise rents every year at 3%, or they would face some loss down in the future where they would never be able to recover those rent price increases. So, yeah, I mean, this could make things worse. The tenants could end up seeing more rent increases than they ever saw before with this sort of legislation that's proposed, okay? Not only that, but, artificially keeping the rents low, or them trying to artificially keep the rents low, actually will increase demand for those units. So it will be harder for the people who need them to be able to find them because, the government has put these price controls in place. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues, and it always goes back to, what they're trying to do is create a socialist system, right? And socialist systems, we know, don't work. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of this proposal. Do you think it's a good idea to have rent control over the land that's underneath, because they're renting the land underneath these mobile home parks? Yeah, I don't. I've already explained my reasoning, but let's see what the article says about the whole situation. This article is coming from CPR.org. And it says, Colorado Democrats consider rent stabilization for mobile home parks. Let's see what it says. State lawmakers from northern Colorado, dismayed by changes in local mobile home parks, are proposing a sweeping new bill that would include the first statewide mandate for rent stabilization, which is similar to rent control. It is rent control. The bill would cap rent hikes on mobile home lots each year. It's a response, the sponsors say, to the influx of wealthy investors who are buying mobile home parks and rapidly boosting rents as an easy source of revenue. We're no longer dealing with sort of mom and pop markets, said State Representative Andrew Boesnecker. I must have butchered that guy's name. A co-sponsor of the proposal. Well, here's the problem, okay? There might be a lot of out-of-state wealthy investors who are coming in now, but the majority of mobile home park owners in Colorado are still local. They're still small mom and pop landlords, and they're going to get caught up in this mess, okay? So this proposal that you're throwing out there, that you're hoping to, catch these wealthy investors, you're going to end up catching these small mom and pop landlords who are not going to have any means of raising rent when inflation last year in the United States was like 7%, and you're telling them, oh, well, you can only raise your mobile home park rents 3%. Meanwhile, a lot of these mobile home parks, they're sitting there, they still have to pay for utilities. If they have private roads in there, they got to pay to maintain those roads. They got to pay to, do all the snow removal. They got to pay for so much stuff. They got to pay taxes still. They got to have their insurance covered. If there's any community buildings that, like community laundry facilities or any of that, they still have to pay for all that. Yet you're telling them that, hey, you don't get to increase your rents to keep pace with inflation. See, this is my problem with all of these rent control things. Eventually, what it will do is harm the landlords to the point where they're not making any money. And if you're not making any money, what are they going to do? They're going to start cutting back on maintenance. They're going to start cutting back wherever they can. And that's going to mean that the housing in these communities is going to become dilapidated, or if not the housing itself, because the tenants actually own it in these mobile home parks, then the roads, they might be 2-foot deep potholes in there. There might not be any snow removal. It might be just, oh well, too bad, I can't afford to pay for that. But that's what happens when you limit the income that the landlords have that's coming in. Not only that, but, like I said, this is going to fall on the mom and pops, okay? This isn't those big corporate, wealthy landlords who you think are coming in and buying up all these parks. They aren't the majority. There's mobile home parks as small as like 4 mobile homes, okay? I've looked at them online before. I've seen them like, oh yeah, this mobile home park is for sale for $150,000, but there's only 4 mobile homes sitting on it, So these mobile home park owners wouldn't be able to raise their rents either. So, they'd get completely screwed by this sort of law. We've got large out-of-state investors and private equity firms buying up homes in Colorado because of the amount of cash flow and those homes offer, and the equity they can build up very quickly through expensive rent increases. Boesnecker said, mobile home parks are a unique part of the housing market, one that deserves a unique solution. But some owners of mobile home parks are warning that restrictions on rent increases could stifle investment in parks and leave owners unable to respond to upgrade their communities. And that's just exactly what I said, okay? They're not going to be able to make upgrades. They're not going to be able to make as many improvements. And, they're so focused on these big investors, and I absolutely hate that. Mobile homes represent some of the state's most affordable housing, and advocates say these communities are easily exploited by investors. Residents may own the home itself, but can't afford to move it, and there are few other affordable options, essentially trapping them in the property. For mobile home park residents, there's no relief valve, Boesnecker said, saying residents are often handcuffed to land they don't own. Well, I have seen mobile home parks before that were charging significantly below what the market was asking. So when a new owner comes in and then they raise the rents up to the market level, that seems fair to me. Okay, so just for an example, let's say that the monthly rent for the area, the monthly lot rent for the area is $500 a month. So a new mobile home park owner, he comes in, he buys, this mobile home park, and that park was only charging $300 a month lot rent. Well, yeah, he's going to raise the rents up to that $500 level because every other mobile home park in the entire area is charging $500 a month lot rent. These tenants, they got lucky and they weren't charged that amount for whatever reason, be it that the old owner just had less expenses and maybe didn't owe any money on it and just wanted to keep the tenants happy. But the new owner might have a loan on there that they have to pay every month, and they need to prove to their lender that, hey, we're capable of paying this loan. So yeah, they're going to raise those rents up to market level, and yeah, they're going to get a profit out of it because that is the whole reason they bought the park in the first place. Okay, they didn't buy the park to give people affordable housing. That's not the reason that people invest in real estate. They buy these properties to make money. Goodness. So let's see here. Their proposal. Okay, rent hikes capped at 3%. Under the initial proposal, landlords could only raise rent by up to 3% per year. Those kind of legal limits on rent increases are practically unheard of in Colorado, especially on a statewide basis. This is what we've been building towards, said Andrea Chiraboga-Flor, state director of 9 to 5, a nonprofit advocating for working women. Rent control, while that is a trigger for landlords, it's something that people are really drawn to and are excited to be working on. This is setting a big precedent in a state that's pretty libertarian and has very strong property rights. So yeah, of course, the nonprofit worker who knows absolutely zero about business, about the expenses that landlords face, that property owners have to deal with, thinks, oh yeah, let's just, artificially subsidize the rent. Well, she has no clue, okay? She's clueless. I would say that she's ignorant, but you know what? She knows exactly what she's doing, okay? If I could tell my lender, hey, well, I can only pay $500 a month to live in this $5 million mansion, and then they were forced to do it, of course they're going to, that would benefit me, and they would have to take the loss. Well, essentially, this is the same thing, where the tenants, they want the benefit, and they want to force the landlords into a loss so that they can live for cheaper than what it actually costs for them to live there. And, that's not fair. So, yeah, let's hope that this proposal does not pass in Colorado. It's a complete joke. I'm 100% against rent control wherever it's implemented.